The views expressed on the following program do not necessarily represent those of this station or its management.
It's time now for Where You Live with Gene Sullivan, the show that deals with the news and events that affect you the most. Whether you rent or own, live in an HOA, single-family home, or an apartment building, Gene will tackle the issues right where you live. So, from the True North Painting Studios, here's the original man of steel, Resolve himself, who stands for truth, justice, and the association way. Here's Gene Sullivan.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Where You Live. I'm Gene Sullivan, and I'm broadcasting from the True North Painting Studios. When you're looking for the right painting contractor, what do you look for? Isn't it someone who will respect you, your time, your property, and your budget? That's what you can expect from True North Painting. Find out more about this exceptional company by going online at truenorthpainting.com. That's trunorthpainting.com, or give them a call at 952-831-1433. I'm also brought to you by the great folks at Extreme Exteriors and American Family Insurance, the Kim Bennett Agency. Now, usually I give a shout out to the man who makes it happen, Christopher Wider Puberty, but he's on vacation. I've got the pleasure and privilege of working with Lee Michaels. How are you, Lee?
Better than I deserve, Gene.
Yes, I love it when you say that. Hey, let me ask you a question. I know you're a bit of a history buff.
Yes.
Who was this quote attributed to? A government big enough to give you everything you want is also strong enough to take it away.
Ronald Reagan.
He is someone who said it
He requoted, I know.
Quite a bit. Some people say that, they heard Barry Goldwater use it in the 60s. In the 50s, people said they remember a Governor Harold Handley of Indiana who used it.
It goes back to our founding fathers, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, some people, a number of people will say that was attributable to Thomas Jefferson. And it's kind of a paraphrase because he said the same thing, but he just said it a little bit differently. Everybody spoke and wrote a little bit differently back then. He said in a letter to an American soldier, statesman from Virginia, a former lieutenant colonel in the Continental Army. His name was Edward Carrington. Thomas Jefferson wrote, "The natural progress of things is for liberty to yield and government to gain ground." And so it was. He was very keenly aware of this idea of freedom and liberty that we have, and what that means. And I think that's why Thomas Jefferson also said, what was it, that the tree of liberty needs to be refreshed by the bloods of patriots every generation, or something along those lines. In other words, every generation, in our country, if we're going to continue on and enjoy and understand our liberty and freedoms, it's going to be because we know and understand what that means. And I bring this up because it has an integral part in the very first story that we're going to cover this morning on property management in the news. Property Management in the News is brought to you by Home Furniture and Abbey Floor Coverings. Their showrooms are staffed with professionals who will help you choose what you need to fit both your lifestyle and budget. Whatever you need, chances are they'll have what you're looking for. If you wish to avail yourself of special pricing you're not going to find anywhere else, all Where You Live listeners, call Customer Service Coordinator Lori Matson at 952-224-2663. Our first story comes from Sydney, Australia.
Down under.
Yes, down under. And they have, and I want to kind of entitle this, there really doesn't have to be a law for everything, does there? And here's what's happening in Sydney, Australia. They say there is a long overdue change, they said, for strata law. And I thought, strata law? Well, because of their British heritage and background, even though we both speak English, it's a little bit different. In England, it's not a water fountain, it's a bubbler. It's not a umbrella, it's a bumper chute. And it's not an HOA, it's called a strata, because the idea is that you have a level of society made up of people that all have the same rank and position, and that's what they use to describe an HOA. And I like the description of an HOA that way, because that is truly the case. This is a corporation, a small government of people who are all at the same rank, same level, same position, same authority, and same ability to influence what goes on in their association. Unfortunately, because of certain things, you have people who go to their legislators and say, we need a law. We need a law for this. We need a law for that. And there's some things, I guess I won't say that we can't be a society without laws. We do need to have laws that are on the books, but I'm probably leaning definitely on the side of more limited government, with the understanding that, we have common sense to be able to deal with a lot of issues ourselves, and we don't necessarily need a law to try and describe everything. It's kind of like the story of, I remember one mother who said to me a number of years ago, she said that she heard this crashing noise in the living room, bang, crash, bang, crash. And she went in, there was her 4-year-old boy who had a hammer in his hand, and he was knocking out all of the windows. And she said, what in the world would possess you to think that you could do that? And he turned around to her, she said, and he said to her, well, you never said I couldn't do it. And now it seems like we live in a society where that's the case. You think of all the lawsuits that take place today, everything that we think is necessary. Do we really need to have something on a product that says this hair dryer, don't stand in the shower when it's plugged in? Apparently we do, because people need to have everything described to them. Otherwise we're not being fair. And I think that there is something that has been lost. And I think that's certainly the case with legislation many times. There's a lot of legislation that's very good. There are a number of things that people don't think about what those unintended consequences are. Well, here's what's happening in Sydney, Australia, with strata law. They had several issues they thought needed to be dealt with. One was, and I guess these were all with management companies, with property management companies. Number one, they said property management companies should be required to disclose conflicts of interest, ownership, and other entities that they have working for the HOA or for the strata. Now, that makes sense. We have those laws here in Minnesota. There's another law that they want to put on the books, that you cannot, as a property management company, you cannot commingle the funds of clients in one big pot. And that makes sense. If you underestimate what's going to come in and spend money on some invoices for one client and realize they didn't put the right amount of money in, now you've spent someone else's money. You can't commingle. That's against the law. Those are good things. It's hard for me to imagine that in Sydney, Australia, that these laws haven't already been on the books. But if they haven't, good for them. They should be. But here's one that really made me want to take a look and say, really? Really, is this what's taking place? And what is that law? Well, I'll tell you, but after this break. So you don't go away. We've got a lot more of Where You Live on AM 1280 The Patriot. Back after these messages.